Yeah, and when I lived in Colorado, I got asked to by a friend of mine to speak to a young lady who also struggled with lupus and was suicidal. And so I was, I sat down with her and her fiance and had dinner and was just talking to her. And I used the bowl analogy, which she hadn't heard before. But then I asked her, I'm like, what do you enjoy doing? And she was like, well, I really enjoy painting and I enjoy this. And she started naming out all of these things that she was doing. And I'm like, okay, well, the last time that you had like a lupus flare up or, one of these situations where you had to get hospitalized, what were you doing? And she was like, oh, well, I went out with some friends and they wanted to go hiking and all of this other stuff. And then like, and her fiance's kind of got this look on his face, like, that's all the stuff that I like to do. And I was kind of like, so every time you go out drinking, hanging out, spending an excessive amount of time in the sun, doing physical activities, you know what I'm saying, on the frontier of Colorado, because this is when I was living in Colorado at the time. I'm like, so all the things that you don't like to do is what exacerbates your lupus and causes you to get hospitalized. But all the things that you enjoy doing can be done inside without exposure to sun. Yeah, and it generates something, because I'm like, you're hiking, you don't get nothing out of that except for a selfie, and she loved to paint. And I'm like, so why don't you spend more time doing that, right? Like go to a paint class with your friend, right? Go to a wine and canvas class with your friends. I'm not telling you to connect with people, but they need to understand that, like, if they love you, they need to understand your limitation. They can go hiking on another day when you're not there, right? Or, or like you go to a certain point and they go up to the top of the summit. They're going to 14,000 miles or 14,000 feet. You stopped at 7 and took your behind back to the car and set in the air conditioning until everybody else got there. And I'm like, the main thing that I see people do, especially with conditions like lupus and autoimmune diseases, is to not be transparent enough with the people around you to let them know that, like, I can't just do what you do, because a lot of times we go along to get along and it's hurtful to us in general. But when you have a chronic illness, it's even worse, right? Like, I know people who hang around people who drink, but they don't like to drink. And when you're around the people who drink, you drink, right? Where like you got an autoimmune disease, alcohol, like exacerbates inflammation. So you wouldn't, if you were by yourself, you wouldn't do it. And I think we just have to have more definitive lines that we're like, I'm not crossing this line. And we have to be comfortable with the fact that that'll make other people uncomfortable, or that there'll be some things that people who might be our age or who might be our friends or who might be similar to us in other ways, that's just not something God made us capable of doing. And that also means then I can use that time to do something else, right? It doesn't mean I sit at home, like you said, and ruminate on, oh, I can't do that and I can't do that. It's like, no, I can do some things. So that means that God's giving me more time to do those things.